All right, howdy, folks. We are here back with Erica Corbo doing another improvisation clinic and workshop on for our Zoom at Noon series. And she's going to talk more about free improv today. And we're going to make this a little bit more interactive so those that are a part of it can experiment with their own instruments. Um, so we've got Rishi and Jude who are going to chime in and play a little bit too. All right, Erica, go ahead.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Erica and I play mainly piano, but also flute and a little bit of mandolin, which I have here. So I did an improvisation clinic last week and I touched a little bit on free improv, but I'm going to elaborate more on free improvisation today. And I can apply it to all types of instruments, including voice. So just to give you a little information briefly on what free improvisation is, basically it's just improvising means that you're playing without any preconceived plan. And free improvisation means that there are no rules about how the music has to sound. So for example, if you're in a rock band and you're playing a guitar solo, there's a lot of expectations about how your guitar solo will sound. You have to work within the framework of that genre. If you're playing in jazz and you improvise, it's the same thing. In free improvisation, there's no preconceived framework. You can literally do whatever you want. There's a lot of different styles of free improvisation and free music or avant-garde music. Avant-garde just means basically new, radical, sometimes controversial things in the arts. There's free jazz, which is a little more traditional. There's usually like a drummer and probably a horn player doing all this crazy stuff. There's modern classical music, which gets into some avant-garde territory or improvising territory. And then there's just free improv, which is more of like, it's almost like a music therapy where you just do whatever comes to you. It's not music therapy, but it's similar to that. It's more like finding your inner voice, not learning a genre or a specific language. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of just go with that of free improv, but I just want you to be aware that there are traditions and lineages of avant-garde music that you can look into on your own, and maybe at the end I'll give you some recommendations for listening. But anyone can improvise, even if they have just started their instrument and have no idea about improvisation. So,
Right. So this is going to probably feel outside the box to students who have had more of like a route learning, right? Where you've learned chords and scales and you've learned everything to be pretty structured. This is kind of like not throw it out the window, but like press the pause button on that part of your brain right now. And now we're going to open up a completely different side of
yeah, we do use the skills we practice because they're in your toolbox, but yeah, we're not trying to like display our technique. It's not about displaying what we know. It's about self-expression. What did you say something?
Jude said, I forgot to say this when I came in, but I also left a virtual school lesson to come here.
Oh.
Hey, not that we can condone that, but you could catch up on that later. So,
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this last time, but basically when you go to improvise in this style, you want to approach your instrument as if it's something completely new. You want to have like a beginner's mind. And I'm going to start on the instruments because probably everyone will be more comfortable there. But honestly, usually I think it's best to start with your body or with the environment around you. But just because I'm probably talking to mostly musicians who maybe have never done this before, we're going to start on our instruments. So the first thing that we're going to do is just practice doing an improvised piece with just notes that we know. So we're not going to do anything too crazy just yet. So on piano, I can play one note at a time. I I can play multiple notes at a time. I can play with 2 hands. I can play with 1 hand. Of course, I can change the rhythm of my notes. I can change the amount of space or quiet rest I have in between my notes and phrases. Yeah, and another thing I want to add about this is that we're not worrying about playing in any key. We're just playing notes. So forget about keys, no scales. Right. Well, so free improv is free. So if you want to play a scale, you can. But like for this exercise right now, we're not worrying about a tonality. So there's no key center. So I'll show you a string instrument next because I know we have guitar players. This is not a guitar, but I play it, so guitar I wouldn't be too good at. We can also play single notes. We can play 2 or 3 notes at a time. We can play chords. We can do different types of things with the strings. And that's basically it for notes. And voice, same thing. We can sing. Da, 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 da. We can make sound effects and stuff, but just with notes, I guess. Voice is a little more limited than the other instruments. And flute or horns or things like that are kind of the same, where we're just going to have. So for this kind of improvisation, stringed instruments and piano will have more options than something where you can only do 1 note at a time. So I'm just going to do a really short improvisation and just using notes. I'm not doing anything crazy yet. And I'm going to have, then we're going to, if you guys want, you can take turns also doing something short. And by short, I mean like 30 seconds. So here we go. So the reason that was a piece and wasn't random is because it had a definitive start and ending. And I made definitive choices. So I wasn't just going like this and not paying attention. I was making definitive choices about my rhythm. I wasn't playing in any key. I was almost putting my hands randomly. I wasn't thinking about what chords I was playing. But I was making other choices, like I said, about my rhythm, about the speed of my notes, about the volume. I was aware of the start and the end. Like I put a punctuation at the end of the piece. Yeah, so those things, as you develop this, will help you make pieces. At first, it might feel like you're just playing randomly. Do either of you want to try it? No pressure, but if you want to, you're welcome to.
Huh? Rishi?
Okay.
You want to give it a shot? Yeah.
All right. Woo!
And this is, like, I love doing this with Erica because like this is different for me too. Like I don't I'm gonna do these exercises later today. And
yeah, a lot of professional musicians like would not be comfortable doing that. So.
Yeah, it takes me out of my comfort zone, but in like that very good way that's freeing. Free what?
So, Rishi, are you at your instrument or are you going to use your voice?
I'm at my instrument.
Okay, so yeah, just you can do anything you want. Just try to make it like 20 or 30 seconds. Just play some notes. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Sorry. I'm gonna stop the video for a second because
Do you need to get your thing set up? I'm gonna make you bigger.
Come on, Jude. He says he doesn't want to. You should give it a shot, man.
You shy?
Oh man.
Good job. Thank you for trying. Sorry, I need to turn this. I realized I left my cat fountain on. It's kind of loud. Okay, Rishi. Wait, that was Rishi, right?
Yep, that's Rishi.
Okay. What did you notice that you did mostly while you were playing?
I played mostly scales.
Yeah, so probably you've practiced a lot of scales. So at first when we improvise, it's going to be like whatever we practiced is almost going to automatically come out, and that's totally normal and totally fine because you do want to use the skills that you already practiced. But as you practice this, what I want you to try to do is you try to like trick your thinking. So you try to do things you've never done before, or say, okay, it's easy for me to play scales. How could I play something complete opposite of scales? Like maybe if you're used to playing scales, you're like, I'm only gonna let myself play one long, slow note at a time. And they're not allowed to be next to each other. So this might be like, if I was trying to practice and I'm like, oh, I just keep playing scales and it annoys me because I don't wanna play scales, but it's just, that's what happens when I get nervous. Then I might say, okay, for this piece, the rule is one slow, long note at a time, and you have to make a whole piece just out of that. So I might. And again, this isn't like normal music, like this wouldn't be on the radio. So I'm not gonna do a whole piece now for the sake of time, but that might be an exercise that I do. Also, when we're doing this music, it's not, like we're not making songs. It's not always listenable, especially when you're practicing this. You're not worrying about whether it sounds good to someone. When I do perform this music a lot, and in that case, I might play a little different because I am thinking about the audience. But when you're practicing it, there's really no rules about that.
I guess another exercise you could do is play it as two notes, right? As dyads or triads, and
two notes. Yeah. So you can't. Yeah.
Like now that's gonna make it so you're not playing scales, right? You could still play scalar movements, but it would sound different, right? Because you're using thirds or fourths or whatever.
Yeah, and also since you are good at scales, you could practice doing more pieces that are scale based because you also want to practice what you already are good at. So you can work on, oh, how can I play? Maybe I'll do a piece where I only play scales, but I'll explore all different places I could start my scales.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a scale. I was doing kind of a scale movement, but it wasn't any specific scale that I know. So there's just basically endless possibilities with this. Jude, you're fine, right? You don't want to try?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay, so then let's go to the next step. So we've explored just like what we already know. And again, I could just work with you guys for like 2 hours just doing this, but I'm gonna keep going. So now let's try to do sound effects on our instruments. So we're not gonna play notes. We're gonna see what other things can happen. On piano, this is the easiest because we can just easily just use our hands and make a lot of sounds, right? We can go like this. We can it's easier with your shirt. If I had a grand piano, I could even open up the back and play the strings. I can play with different parts of my hands. I can play with different parts of my body. In our voice, we can obviously make a lot of sounds. Oh. You could experiment for an hour and just find sounds with your voice. On single note instruments, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, there's all sorts of things like that. Single note instruments, you can just kind of blow and do crazy things with your fingers. I also want to point out there's all types of extended techniques. People specialize in that for wind instruments. So I'm not a specialist in that, but there are specific things you can practice to get extended techniques. You can take your instrument apart and play like certain parts of it. And then I'll show you on a string instrument because I think Jude plays guitar, right? And piano?
Yeah, Jude plays.
Yeah. So on a string instrument, it's similar to piano. Again, this is not my main one, but you can, these are gonna be really quiet sounds. You can slide, make sounds. You can just play anything. You can bang on the strings. You could think of a lot of different, even more things. A real guitar player or a string player could think of more things than me. And if it's amplified, you have that whole other element, because with your amp, there's going to be more things that happen. You can, because you can play really quiet or maybe play with feedback and stuff like that.
Jude mentioned, he said, yeah, if you use a guitar slide above the pickups on a guitar, you get some weird sounds. Actually, here, I'm going to grab a slide.
Yeah. And this is like, people do this in rock and roll, like Jimi Hendrix, and he's the only one I can think of right now, but there's others that just play with feedback and make noise and stuff. So, there's a whole...
Yeah, this, like, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but like I always do this with my students where I show them like a slide sound effects that you can do with slide.
Yeah.
That's like bird sounds, and then like R2D2, like it's probably hard to hear.
Yeah, no, I can hear it. It's cool.
So like that kind of stuff, it's not music. It's not musical, but it's audio, right? It's something you hear, and actually, if you're interested in audio, look into the sound effects, how they were created. Oh, I also have like a copper slide that a little bit different sound, right? The material that you use is going to change. But look into the sound designer for the Star Wars movies.
Oh yeah.
He does some really cool, like it's amazing the stuff that he figured out how to do just from experimentation and improv. I mean, you know, taking microphones and sweeping them in front of like old projectors to make that lightsaber sound, and using synthesizers to make all of the different R2D2 sounds and other. It's pretty amazing. Cool.
So and now I'm gonna make an entire piece just with sounds. So I'm not gonna play single notes. I'll try not to. That's actually hard, but I'll try. And again, this is gonna be really short. Okay. Does anyone want to try?
What'd you guys think of that? It's pretty fun, right? I mean, the cool thing about it is it's very primal, right? Like it feels like, or like if you put like a 3-year-old at a piano.
Yeah, it's yes, that's exactly
right.
it. So
that it's very cool that I mean it's just what you want to do when you first sit at a piano before somebody told you like what you're supposed to do at a piano, right?
yeah, exactly. It's like basically the goal. I mean, my goal is to find your true self. So it's like, yeah, your childlike self. When you're already a kid, it's easier, but when you're an adult, it's like finding your child self again.
Right.
Basically, yeah. So it's like if nobody ever taught you any rules or told you you were wrong about anything, what would you do when you were just playing? It's literally playing. Like you're just playing. You're just exploring. Yeah. Um, and okay, so is Rishi gone?
He may have had an internet connection issue or something.
Okay.
People pop out and in and
Okay, we'll keep going. So again, there's whole bands that do this. I have played in a band called Spacewell Orchestra that we have whole albums of improvised music like this, but we do mix tonality in. So now I'm gonna do a piece where I mix notes, and I might even play in a key for a little bit, and mixing sound effects, and see how it all fits together.
that was great. That was awesome. Jude
Yeah.
says this is a weird comparison, but this feels like someone took Jimmy Page's Heartbreaker solo and pianified it, and I love it so much. It's
Oh.
a really, really good way of that was very cool. Like that was because it does come in and out of and yeah, this is there. Jimi Hendrix did this. Jimmy Page, they did a lot of free improvisation, especially in live performance. Even Brian May from Queen, who you'd think of like not out there improvisational music, very structured, composed music, but he would get his like Brighton Rock solo. I think that's one of them that's crazy good. But so that was very cool.
Yeah, so well, first of all, the most creative artists in any field are gonna be thinking outside the box just naturally, because that's by definition like what an artist is. Um, there's a lot of people who make art that I don't feel are artists because they're not really thinking outside of the box. Although there's a lot of there's no one definition of what artist is. So
Right.
like don't take that personally at all. But to me, that's what an artist is. Some musicians are really into genre mastery and they just want to master like the language of jazz. And that is an aspect of art. And they want to learn how to express themselves within one thing. And some people are more interested in doing things like this, where they're just trying to find their own voice. The reason that I also think that piece was better than the others because it mixes all the things together.
Yeah.
And that's why I like free improvisation, because maybe we do want to play in a key and make it sound like a song for a little bit, but it's nice to not have to stay that way forever and to know that you can mix all things together, because I think that's when they become the most interesting.
Right. And I've gone to see a couple of Erica's improv shows, and I've probably gone to some of the ones that maybe she did become a little bit more mainstream in certain aspects of it. But it was fun to have something familiar pop up, and then you go completely away from it somewhere else. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's
the it comes out of nowhere and then seems to go off, and then like you're almost like, did that just happen?
yeah. My favorite thing is doing that and trying to like make composed music dissolve into free, and then really quickly evolve back into being structured.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it comes across. That's one of my favorite parts of seeing your shows is
Great.
and like the first time I went and saw Erica, I was like, whoa, this was new for me, right? Because I actually didn't study jazz, didn't study music really in school or anything. So it was for me. Anytime I get to go and see something new, I'm like a little bit like, whoa, first exposure.
Yeah, a lot of people have no idea about this kind of music because you wouldn't encounter it. And then a lot of people only listen to this kind of music. It's very like, polarizing. So another thing I would love to do is to have it just be more. It doesn't have to be so polarizing. It can be like more in the consciousness of the public. Okay, do either of you want to try? No pressure, but I just want to offer before I say a few more things. Yes, no.
Does anybody want to try again? Do something else, Rishi?
No.
No,
Yeah. She's
Rishi.
back.
I've unmuted you. Do you want to say?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to try something?
Sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, good.
Love
Yeah,
it.
try. Let's hear
Love
it.
Love the.
Woo!
You went from one spectrum to the other, man. That was awesome. That was like you went from this quickly broke down your walls of structure.
All the walls are gone.
That was like one of those like church miracle shows. You just like it was like that was awesome, man. That was really cool. So and then I guess that was great. Doing it just like that was perfect, man. But maybe try next time. Try finding maybe a middle ground.
Yeah, so as you experiment, you'll find, I don't know what that sound was. As you experiment, you'll find all different things you can do. So the piano again is really good for this because you can just like do whatever you want to do with your hands and it will translate to something on the instrument. So it's a perfect place to start experimenting. And it also feels kind of like it feels like a little punk rock, like you feel like really rock and roll a little when you're doing it. Like you're like, yeah, I'm rocking out so hard right now.
Yeah.
So that's also a really fun aspect. This has a lot of punk rock in it. Like a lot of actually, the scenes cross over. A lot of people that come to my avant-garde shows also love punk rock, which like they don't go to other, but then also people who like jazz come to them. So it's a little bit of a crossing of the scenes of just kind of that attitude of like, you don't have to know anything, because that's a lot of the punk rock bands, they didn't know how to play their instruments before they became a band. And it's kind of that attitude of like, you didn't have to grow up studying this to be able to do this. Yes. Music brings people together.
As they say. They do.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly give you a couple, maybe if you want to listen to some artists, just tell you like a couple people you can look up. And I actually do listen to a lot of free jazz, which is going to be more structured than this, but I'll just tell you some names just because that's a good place to start and what's what I know about. Sunra, Sunra, or his band is called the Arkestra, Arkestra, but if you just write Sunra, he basically led a swing big band that also played totally out. It's called out playing. And I love that band because it goes from just swing ballad to complete insanity, like within one song. John and Alice Coltrane. John Coltrane's later stuff, and then Alice Coltrane also does a lot of free improv. A lot of these people it's like a very spiritual pursuit. So they're into not necessarily a certain religion, but just spirituality. They're usually into space and the planets, stuff like that. Ornette Coleman is another jazz artist who brought about free, and he ushered in free improv into jazz more than Coltrane was a little more traditional. And also there's Albert Ayler, Cecil Taylor. He's famous for piano, so if you're interested in piano, I would look him up. And Pharoah Sanders is another free player. People that are around now that I love, there's a pianist named Arawan Ortiz. He plays just really cool modern style. And Chris Davis. And then there's a lot of modern classical composers that I don't know too many of them, but this is like from the classical standpoint, this is like a European thing. George Crumb is one of them. And then earlier composers that kind of ushered this in would be like Schoenberg or Bartok. And then you can see a lot of this music around here. Ars Nova is an organization that puts on a lot of free jazz. Fire Museum puts on a lot of smaller improvised music. Cool. You can find my group, Spacewell Orchestra. Online, we have a website. I have my own website, which is just my name, ericacorbo.com, that you can find.
And you have that great album, the I Am Erica, which...
Yeah,
where is that on your website and everything? And
yeah, so
it's everywhere pretty much, right?
Yeah, you can stream. My solo album has like my songs, and they are songs, but it does mix in this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that might be a good entry point too. It's called I Am Erica. It's on. You can stream it on iTunes and like anywhere, Spotify. I don't think you can stream it on Amazon, but you can buy it there. And it's also just on my website. You can find it.
Bandcamp probably too, right?
Yeah, Bandcamp. Yeah, but that's all linked through the one site.
Yep.
So I guess we're drawing to a close, but let me just.
I had a couple. Would you consider some of Frank Zappa's work in?
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. So there's tons of artists that could be in the avant-garde or we'll just look at it as avant-garde. I don't know if they're all free improvising, but
right.
Yeah, Frank Zappa.
I know he's got a three disc album. It's called "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar," "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More," and "Shut Up and Keep Playing Your Guitar," or something like that. And it's just him improving like.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's a lot. I mean, it's just guitar improv. That's pretty much all it is. The entire 3 albums. And then you mentioned something earlier that I think is really cool to mention. We were talking about when you were playing, like if you were playing on a grand piano, you could reach over and like manipulate the strings differently.
Yes.
So Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys famously in Pet Sounds did a lot of this kind of stuff on his recordings where like he would put what are those hairpins on the piano strings, so when they vibrated you'd hear also it almost sounded like harpsichord-y or something kind of like that. Like, so some of this stuff that you come up with when you're doing improvisation leads to brilliant ideas that you're going to put into your music that might be more conventional, right? It's like, I actually find I write more music when I'm just playing and improv than thinking like, okay, now I'm going to sit down and play some chords and write a song. Like,
right. Yeah. So that's exactly right. You don't have to play completely improvised music to have this be helpful to you. Mm-hmm. So where I would go next is, like Jared said, with the strings, finding other sounds your instrument can make that doesn't involve playing notes at all. So I'll just kind of give you, in case you guys want to practice or explore, you just see like all the surfaces your instrument has. Obviously the piano is wood, so you can open up the bag, you can play the strings, you can knock on the wood, you be gentle, but use different things on the keys to make
Maybe
quiet
the
sounds.
hinges even.
Yeah, the pedal makes a sound that you can use. The same with flute. We talked about this last time. There's a lot of mechanical sounds that it can do just from the mechanisms.
Right.
Guitar, obviously, it's kind of similar to piano. You can use the wood. And then I would encourage you to explore all the sounds your body can make, not just your voice, but, you know, clapping, stomping your foot, snapping, like whatever. Jared was doing that thing that I can't do. Yeah.
What about armpit? What about armpit?
Yeah, I can't do that either, but that's a good one. And then you want to explore all the things your environment can do. So this music is also just about deep awareness of like where you are and everything. So like I usually bring a drumstick with me when I go to perform this because I might want to bang on the leg of my stool to make like a metallic sound, or maybe the wall is stucco and if I drag the drumstick on it, it'll make a cool sound. So there's the sky's the limit, but I would start on your instrument like we went over. Then I would do all the things you can do. I would explore your own body, your voice, and then the environment. And then you know what you have in your toolbox because you've explored everything.
Right.
And do you want me to just, as a closing, should I just show you like a piece where I do?
Sure, that'd be fantastic.
Right.
Wait, does that Jude or Rishi, you have any questions first?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I
I do not have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of those things that requires much questioning because it's really like it's like no, the rules are there are no rules, right? So
You're just exploring.
yeah,
The time that it would matter is if you were trying to think compositionally, which I always do because I do believe that you should do that. Like I was saying, where I had choices about how it started and how it ended,
right,
things like that. And if I am performing, then I do think a little more compositionally, whereas if I'm doing an exercise at home, I'll just be experimenting. But
Yeah.
some people believe you should never cater to the audience at all. So
Sure.
okay, so I'll just do a piece where I mix in a bunch of different things.
Yeah, very cool. This is fun. This is something. Yeah, that was very fun. I think the now another way to you could really get fun with this and go crazy with it, and your parents should think you're probably going nuts in your room right
You
now.
sound like a crazy person. Just get over it. Like you just
Yeah.
like there's no pride here. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, that's probably the best message
Yeah.
of it is you just and that's the beauty of it, right? How often do you get to just be a
there's
crazy
literally,
person?
yeah. You just think of a 5-year-old. They're not embarrassed about themselves ever.
Right,
So
right.
it's
There's
literally you just being a toddler.
yeah, it's like I somebody I interviewed when I used to work for Road Trip Nation. She said like when you're young and you learn how to ride a skateboard, you don't care that you fall. This is why adults don't learn how to ride skateboards, is because they're afraid of falling.
Right, and well, then they're embarrassed. It's like you're
And
afraid of pain, and you're also embarrassed.
yeah, no, I'd say I think the embarrassment is actually
Yeah,
the bigger pain. The
yeah.
like the scrape on your elbow heals, but the embarrassment sticks with you. But no, that's not how it should be. So I learned how to skateboard as an adult after this lady told me that. And I was like,
Ooh.
I'm going to a CVS parking lot and I'm gonna like skateboard around until I learned how to do it. And now I can, now I can ride a skateboard.
Ooh.
So don't listen to the that voice inside your head that's saying like, no, this is weird, this is crazy, this is like that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's
Yeah, you learn to exactly. You learn to differentiate. There's two instinctual voices. The one just gives you the idea where you're like, "Ooh, maybe I should shout right now," and the other says, "No, why would you shout?" Or that doesn't make sense, or everyone will think that is weird. So you listen to the one that tells you the idea, not the one that tells you it's a bad idea.
right.
This is really fun to do with friends. And what I used to do, like my band, we like 10 years ago when we first started, we would always just turn the lights off. It just makes it a lot.
Nice.
You don't get as embarrassed. Like the lights are off. It's like anything can happen. So, and it's also really fun to do alone, and it's just fun. Um,
Cool.
Yeah, I thought of just one more thing. I did a recent set that is on my SoundCloud that you can also access through my website, but I just want to point that out it's just
Yeah.
piano and saxophone. So that's a really good example
Cool.
of all the things you can do with piano.
Awesome. Well,
And
we appreciate this, Erica. That was a lot of fun. It shakes us out of your box a little bit. We like, especially we're all literally boxed in right now, so we need
Yeah,
to
and
get out of our
maybe not
box.
even dance because
Yeah.
I can dance in this box, but there's that whole aspect. You can do movement with this too.
Right. Right. Well, I think if you missed her Erica's first clinic, that's up on our YouTube page and our Facebook page too, so you can check that out. We covered there's a little bit of crossover, but definitely check it out. Not much. So,
Not much. Just in the very beginning, I did that thunderstorm thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that was pretty much it. So check that one out. And I think we'll have Erica back for some more stuff in the future. So thanks, dude. Thanks, Rish. And thank you, Erica.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.